Let's have a closer look at China's economy with Arthur Dong, who's joining me now. He's a teaching professor at Georgetown University's McDonough School of Business. Welcome back.
Thank you, Rachelle. It's always a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you. So as we look at producer prices, we saw that they soared more than 10%, the highest rate on record. What's your take on the factors driving this surge?
Oh, yes, this is certainly a supply shock that's being felt all over the world, and this is certainly not exclusive to China. What we've seen over the past several months is a run-up in global commodity prices. So when you think about those industrial commodities such as iron ore, aluminum, copper, lumber, wood products, and paper, all of those commodities that are vital to an industrial economy have gone up. In addition to that, you have the twin shock of increasing oil prices and energy prices going through the roof, as well as the ongoing supply chain bottlenecks related to seaborne transportation. These things in combination are creating this sort of firestorm of both inflationary impacts as well as a supply shock that's rippling throughout the global economy.
So for Chinese companies that are watching this, how might this impact not just their profits, but how they manage their strategies in the coming months?
Well, certainly you're going to see many Chinese companies, they're going to have profitability impact in terms of the impact of this. One of the worst kinds of inflation that you can experience as a company is when you have input price inflation, but you can't pass that along to your customers. So I believe that their profitability is going to be compressed in the months ahead.
So then what can policymakers do to try and strike that delicate balance between supporting the economy and not stoking producer prices further?
Well, that's a big problem because many of these things are external to China and somewhat out of the control of the hands of policymakers. Now, policymakers in China could find some ways to either reduce taxation or try to reduce the regulatory burdens on some Chinese companies in order to offset this increase in supply costs. And we also know that labor costs are also starting to rise within China as well. And this is going on throughout the entire world.
And as you mentioned, this is a global supply chain issue that we're seeing here. How are these issues all together when you look at the economy and how it's going in China? How is this impacting producer inflation there?
Well, certainly producer inflation is going up, and this is certainly recorded in the aforementioned numbers that you just described by China's statisticians. And so we're going to start to see, increasing in price, and those prices are going to start to show up on the store shelves. When you think about agricultural commodities, food-based commodities, all of those things have been going up of late, meaning for the average Chinese family, what they're putting on the table is going to cost them more.
And what does this mean then for the energy crisis as well? Obviously something also not just single to China.
Yeah, what we're seeing across the board is currently oil being priced in the range of $80 a barrel. The Henry Hub gas being priced at record highs. A shortage on the supply side as OPEC member states do not, in a sense, want to increase the supply of energy. But at the same time, during the pandemic, many wells have closed and have been capped. And so in response to a now recovering global economy, they just simply cannot keep up with supply. And again, the true bottleneck here is not so much they can't pull it out of the ground, they can't find a ship. And so if you can't find a tanker or a ship to put that oil on, that oil is going to remain in the ground, irrespective of your desire to pump more.
So then, given all these bottlenecks and challenges, is this pace that we're seeing expected at this point in the recovery, is that normal, or are you seeing any concerning trends emerging?
It's both normal, but there's also a concerning trend. The normal part is if this is a transitional event that we're going through, in other words, the world is coming out of its pandemic-related sort of downturn and now starting to begin to recover, which means demand is recovering all over the world. That is something that will just take time and in a matter of time should normalize. But I think the larger issue here is the systemic or the structural element that I think that's underpinning some of what we're seeing. Here in the United States, we are confronting a significant labor crisis. And the reason being is, and this is what's structural, people like myself who were born in the post-World War II period, who are baby boomers, who were born in the 1950s and 60s, are now starting to retire in very large numbers. And the demographers have been looking at the numbers and examining these numbers, say that this is a long-term trend that is unlikely to abate anytime soon. If anything, it's going to get worse. And so as a result of that, that's why you're finding they don't have enough workers to drive trucks, to operate trains, as well as unload ships. Right now, there are about 500,000 containers at port waiting to be unloaded around the world. And in the United States, they're confronting serious labor shortages across the board. And this is likely to get worse, perhaps a crisis by 2025, if we are reading those numbers correctly.